You can't kill the boogeyman.
I wanted the audience not to know whether he was human or supernatural. And he had no character. He was blank. He was simply evil. He's like the wind. He's out there. He's going to get you.
And that's what's the most terrifying.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. It's what you don't know about, what you can't see. It's out there. It's pretending the other sequels didn't happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Somewhere around 2016, Jason Blum did the unthinkable. He got the man, the myth, the legend, John Carpenter, to return to the Halloween franchise. The task was simple. Instead of constantly complaining on the sideline about the direction the films are taking, Blum suggested Carpenter get off his ass and help restore it to its original direction. After all, the older sequels aren't going to cease to exist or anything. I mean, only for this new timeline. They're not non-canon to the franchise history. Only this new iteration by David Green, Danny Bride, and his team. With this, we get a true return to form from the story's movie monster, The Shape. No longer tied to familial homicidal tendencies or witches and warlocks. He's again an unknown figure who moves through Haddonfield like a hurricane, randomly, damaging whatever crosses his path. He may walk right by you. He might break your neck in 4 places, stab you 36 times with a rusty screwdriver. But more than that, we get a film by fans of the franchise who, although they love the older films, they didn't want to carry all that baggage into this new iteration, which leads to them even removing my favorite fucking sequel, which was obviously Halloween 2 from 1981. Yes, I say it was. It's still top of my list with the older films, but the new trilogy has squeezed itself into the top of my list just under the original. Anyway, I'm not about to give a history lesson on why Carpenter called Part 2 an abomination and eventually left the franchise. I'm sure if you're watching this, you already know, and I'll leave the other million Halloween franchise YouTubers to constantly keep telling that story. On to why this was such a brilliant move for David and company. There's no explanation given for Michael in the 78 film. No reason why he stared at that wall for 15 years. No reason why he's so hard to kill, if killable at all. No reason for killing Judith or stalking Laurie and her friends. Absolutely a blank slate. On the flip side, there's a lot of ironic flipping of the sides throughout the film, starting with Michael's caregiver, Dr. Sartain. Sartain is such a brilliant move and a treat because he's played extremely well to the audience expectations. He would be, as Laurie sarcastically calls, the new Loomis, which allowed the creators to trick the audience through him. Loomis was always sympathetic because nobody listened to him until it was too late. Everybody blamed him. Sartain is the antithesis to Loomis though. He's more in the vein of Dr. Wynn and Ishmael from Rob Zombie's Halloween. The opening with Sartain is key in establishing the entire groundwork for Michael's forthcoming masterpiece, or as Loomis predicted to Sheriff Brackett, a slaughterhouse. Like Ishmael, we get the sense that Sartain has been around Michael far too long and is far too sympathetic to see what he's really dealing with. But there's also an element that maybe he does realize what he's playing with and doesn't care because his life's work is a failure and he wanted to see if his theory was true, no matter what the price. After all, he laments that Loomis was the only one to see him in the wild, implying he too wanted to see what would happen were he to escape again. Hint, hint. This was clever on several fronts. First, it maintains Michael not having any motive and just going where opportunity takes him. He's not escaping for Laurie, couldn't give 2 fucks about her, or what he did to her life. Sartain helped him escape and was killed in return. Evil is not your friend, kids. Number 2, Sartain gives a plausible and logical reason to the oft-repeated franchise trope of Michael being transported on Halloween Eve for no goddamn reason. At least this time, there's both a nefarious motive and implication in the story itself that Sartain doctored the paperwork to have Michael on that transfer to begin with. Where Loomis was appalled and disturbed by evil, Sartain was mesmerized and intrigued by it. We also see that Hawkins is suspicious of Sartain as well, but with his tunnel vision of capturing Michael as soon as possible, he isn't exactly thinking it all the way through. He's accusatory to Sartain in a way. Brackett's blame for Loomis just doesn't reflect the same way in kind. Hawkins waiting at Sartain's bedside to question him about the paperwork, having Michael's name on it. Great foreshadowing for the immersed viewers, by the way. Instantly, it sends my mind back to his initial response to Hawkins when they first meet. All the carnage and confusion going on, he's shot, possibly bleeding out, yet his only concern in response to the officer on the scene was, did he escape? Did he escape? And it's not like it wasn't a worry that he escaped. It was, this isn't the response of a man in fear of a slaughterhouse in progress, feeling that he failed both his mentor and the townspeople by letting it escape again. This is the response of a lunatic whose own life doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of the things at hand. It's the response of a psycho that's checking to see if his plan is executed as he hoped. I think if you still trust Sartain by this time he meets Hawkins, you weren't paying attention.
Michael Myers is still my patient until he's in somebody else's care. So I'm seeing my duty through till the end.
Another red flag. We see Sartain basically insisting he be let on the bus with Michael. And this wouldn't be necessary if there was nothing odd about him wanting to tag along to begin with. The fact he had to insist he be let on the bus speaks volumes. It's just innocuous enough to be overlooked in the bigger picture, but it was definitely setting the table. The next flip we got Laurie and Michael's dynamic completely as Laurie assumes the role of Hunter, aka the Shape. We get a reframing of Michael's iconic scenes from the original Halloween, spanning all throughout 2018. We get the outside of the school shot, the creeping from the shadow and stabbing shot, and of course the over the balcony and disappear shot. Aaron Corey was correct. One shape created another. Enns brings this motif back and applies it to Corey, but yeah, the idea is pretty much right here for us. Michael is infecting the people. Evil begets evil, and he's evil as it gets for Haddonfield. Laurie's trauma was so impactful, key events from the day that she dismissed became static in her mind, as she ironically ends up the one to be stalking and watching Allison at school, rather than the personification of pure evil. Allison's response, though, implies that this ain't the first time grandmother has done this. It's like, really? Again with this? Look, let us see who Laurie has become in a nutshell. She's replayed that night over and over in her mind, recounting every last detail, and it shows in her actions, whether justified or not, as of course we find out later, she's indeed not justified. The moves play out as sort of a chess match, or cat and mouse as folks tend to say, with Laurie countering a lot of ways she's behaved before. That first night, she never sees him coming. When she's attacked at the steps, only a shape moving toward her appears from her peripheral, and that saved her from a likely fatal stabbing at the hands of Michael, resulting in a minor cut to the arm instead. One can conclude, and I personally do, that this is the reason for why Laurie refers to Michael as the Shape in universe at family dinner.
Sorry, Mom.
Stop this.
Sorry. saw it. The sheep. Mom.
Another moment that stuck out to me that signaled she could let things go. When she gets back to the Doyle house, she's waiting for Michael to enter the house. He never enters through the front door. So now when we see Michael return and he's outside her porch, she doesn't stand away from the door, waiting again. She instead gets in front of the door. Different chess move. And now Michael counters. Instead of coming in through a window, he instead busts through the sides of the door. Check. And we continue. We also see she's also never let go of wanting revenge for those moments, being caught off guard and wanting to rewrite that part of history. So she jumps out the dark at him in the same fashion, unironically, sacrificing a deeper wound for a superfluous one by proxy of dropping her obligatory, cheesy one-liner. We see if she can help it, she's definitely not dropping any knives around Michael, and she's more of the aggressor. But the biggest, most obvious is when she pulls his disappearing from the lawn trick on him. All the iconic story beats of the original are here, but they're spun in a new light rather than just simply rehashed because it's a Halloween movie in its formula. David Gordon Green used this as his ethos to the entire trilogy. Honor what came before, but recontextualize it to where it's coherent for a storyline all unto itself. In other words, it was the proper way to remix that shit. You know the old saying goes, the devil is in the details. Well, this guy with the blackest eyes was all about the details with this go around. One thing he skipped was the tombstone. And I have a sneaky suspicion he would have gotten that too if it wasn't for those pesky podcasters. I also love how his sense of humor is intact after 40 years of isolation. It's marvelous. The way he remixes his Bob the Ghost for a new batch of visitors of his Halloween horror house of fucked up fun. It's a nice touch rather than just putting the sheet on again himself. I like that he didn't just wear the sheet again. Instead, he stages Vicky with the sheet, leaving her for the cops to find. For all intents and purposes, rather than just stage another victim, he put a costume on one first. I mean, what kind of evil genius shit is this? I know Hawkins probably didn't sleep for at least a week after that night, at least once he got out of the hospital. Side note, Texas Chainsaw Massacre tried this and it was, to hilarious effect. Anyway, back to the Masterclass. Carpenter, who I call the cheat code for the entire Blumhouse trilogy, made a great call, telling David and Danny to hold some things back for the sequel or two and be confident the first act would work. We all heard about the original ending, and as much as I like to see it for self, I'm glad they went with their gut and changed it. The dual ending was the right move. If the film bombs, okay, Michael is dead. If it soars, great, Michael is alive with a way out. The theme of one monster creating another monster or monsters gets to be explored from here. By the way, the final flip was given to Allison. I know some viewers and fans thought it was some homage to Jamie Lloyd and H4 and immediately added it to their head canons and started expecting Allison to snap out in the sequel and start killing. No, not a chance, or absolutely not in hell. It was a sign of the next generation and its further distinction between the three. Karen reluctantly did what she had to do. She's more like her mother than she realized. Allison, on the other hand, was the evolution. This final girl wasn't shy and she had the boyfriend. But the flip was to show how she's learned from Laurie's mistake. In the 1978 part of the story, Laurie didn't know what she was up against, so she kept throwing away the knife. Allison, on the other hand, once she picked up that blade, she never let that motherfucker go. The devil is really in these details. What I absolutely love about this entire trilogy is how Michael was used the way Carpenter did in the original. His actions represent Carpenter's will to manipulate the audience rather than functioning as a character with a motive from which to operate from. The truth is, Bob isn't easier to kill than Annie and Linda because of the many fan theories to why things like he's one-dimensional and blah, 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 and so on. No, it's because Michael does what Carpenter needs him to do at specific moments. He's inconsistent intentionally, and it's not some comic book shit where his power bar is at different levels or whatever superpower phrase folks want to use. Nah. He's intentionally inconsistent because Carpenter wants the tension to ebb and flow.
I remember this famous screening where I got to sit outside and listen to the audience scream at Halloween. It was like a symphony. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. They screamed in all the places I wanted them to scream.
Also, to decrease and increase. The Bob kill is quick, not because of anything different about Bob, because Carpenter wants to evoke power and shock this kill. In contrast, he's taking us for a ride with Linda and Annie, so their deaths are suspenseful, meant to elicit a different release. Annie's is slow, silent, and excruciatingly dreadful and intense. Same for Linda, especially with Laurie on the other end of the phone, bringing it back to their friendship and having to see her end like that. Michael begins escalating because Carpenter wants to ramp up the act. This is nothing conscious on Michael's part. He's being used as, like saying, he's that evil wind that's just blowing and it's going where the director needs it to blow. Michael goes from patient and methodical and accurate suddenly to sloppy, hurried, and destructive rather than graceful. He's now punching through doors and not only missing his target multiple times, but getting damaged in return. The ambiguity lends itself to every facet of his actions. As far as I'm concerned, Michael doesn't have any sort of foreknowledge of the world, like he's some sort of quasi-omniscient. So when he does things like stare at a window before there's anybody there to see him, as if he knew when and where Laurie would look out there, or hides in the closet waiting for Bob, it's because that's where Carpenter wants the scare to hit you. The irrational behavior works because Michael's action isn't supposed to make sense. What if Bob fell asleep with Linda after they smashed instead of going to get some beer? How long would he have stood downstairs in that kitchen closet? What if Laurie picked up a book or made a meal rather than look out her window? Or what if he wasn't really there in that particular clothing line scene to begin with? In contrast, maybe Michael thought about that with Bob last time, and that's why he left the light on in Julian's room. All but guaranteed he wouldn't be waiting there for long, but then again, what if Julian decided, fuck the light, and went to sleep? What does Michael do then? I wonder. Side note, I like how they handle Michael's classic finishing move in this trilogy. He does it to Dave off screen, and we get it in the aftermath as a surprise. And it ends in the middle of an unprecedented scene, no less, which I call a nice homage to Scream. But that's just me. A crazy scene where some dumb Goy Myers is teaching Bruce Leroy Cunningham the ropes of being pure evil. We get one last wall painting from the man, the myth, the blend, the legendary artist of blood himself. I really enjoyed the majority of the characters in 2018, and by extension, the majority of them throughout the whole trilogy. And Sartain is no exception. Loomis's evil twin was a master touch if you ask me. Don't ask me, I already told you. It's like Danny walked into the writing room one day and said, hey Dave, I got a few questions. What if Loomis did let him out? What if Loomis wanted to see him at work and wanted to protect him instead of eliminate him? What if Loomis was obsessed in a totally different manner? And then Dave looked at him and said, then we have a great way to trick or treat the fans. Well, when it's all said and done, 78 ushered in a new era for horror. And 2018 did it again. Existing as both a remake and a sequel is no easy feat. But as Carpenter said in 2017, when asked why he returned for David and Danny, they get it. And with that, I hope you got it. If not, run it back again, in case you missed it. But this has been the masterclass of crafting a requel. Halloween 2018. Spielberg, million ideas. I'm out of here. Till next time.
Ah!